Thank you. That was indeed very seamless. My job, don't everybody groan, because in my title at Costain is Social Value and Equality, Diversity and Inclusion. So I spend quite a lot of my time in schools. And to answer your point, David, the government is investing in careers education. They fund something called the Careers and Enterprise Hubs, which are in every region, and schools now have 8 careers metrics, KPIs, that they have to meet, called the Gatsby benchmarks. I can talk at length about this, but you're absolutely right that it's vital that children are given the options, the information that they need in order to be able to make their decisions, because it's becoming ever more confusing and difficult for them, and we expect them to make decisions so early. But yes, so social value and EDI, thank you so much, Natasha. That was a really fascinating presentation. I am very much on the cusp. I was born just after the boomer generation. I escaped it by a few months. So I think that probably is why I'm a bit schizophrenic and wear my neurodiverse hat. I am of the Generation X, but I have a 17-year-old. So I have a Gen Z. She calls it Gen Z because, of course, they get all their information from the internet and the American input. And when I constantly try and talk to her about engineering and construction, and she completely dismisses that and wants to join the army, which, to your point, Natasha, they have cracked it with the ads. This is it's such a good point that actually a lot of it is about how we present ourselves as an industry, how our businesses speak to the world, what we communicate, how open. And it's true that people dislike the expression diversity and inclusion or EDI or whatever, but there's no doubt that inclusion is a good word for what we are trying to do, because we are trying to include everybody, no matter where they're from, who they are, and that's a really important thing for our businesses. And actually, show of hands in the room who hasn't heard of Costain. Okay, that's fine. I wasn't sure about the audience, but so I have a few slides. But interestingly, to Natasha's point, you might recognize that we have just had a visual identity makeover. And we have spent an awful lot of time talking to Gen Z about what it is that they want and what would attract them to join a business. And so now we talk about our vision and our mission and our purpose. So exactly to Natasha's point, purpose is really key to attracting young people. I think we all need purpose, but or certainly I didn't used to wake up, when I was in my 20s and go, oh, I don't have a purpose for getting out of bed today. It's kind of what we did. Whereas now young people will talk about that, and so we have to talk about it. Our purpose is improving people's lives. Enabling the people and the planet to thrive. There are those, when I go into schools, there are those who want to hear about the really big stuff that we build. And there are also a lot of people who want to hear about, well, how do we connect people? How do we improve people's lives? And it's a bit of a shift, I think, in some of our mindsets. I know that you guys in the room are a lot more technical than I am. I apologize, and nothing about cementitious paving. But I am absolutely passionate about what we do, and about how we help connect the country and improve people's lives. It's important to me and it's important to them, so we have to say this. So we have a 160-year heritage. How do we translate that for future generations? How do we make sure that what we do and how we do it and who we do it with are sustainable for the future? We have to make sure that we are using best practice wherever we can. I know that most businesses in the room will work with the types of business like Best Companies, who we use to do our engagement surveys, because it's absolutely key that we make sure that we understand our people. What are the issues that keep them awake at night? How is everybody's well-being, particularly post-COVID, which COVID threw us all into a tailspin, didn't it? It was a very interesting time, and things are quite different now. And one of the key things that we all have to focus on is net zero. As a business, Costain has said that we are going to be net zero by 2035. Now that is going to need a huge amount of different thinking. Particularly, people in this room, I know, carbon is a huge issue. It's very high on the agenda, isn't it, for cementitious paving? Anything to do with cement is a huge carbon challenge. So it needs different thinking. It needs people who can come up with innovative solutions, who can think differently, who can work differently, because a lot of the time we know that we have to do things differently, but as Natasha said, it's actually doing it on a day-to-day basis that's the challenge. You know, we all know that we should be taking the train instead of driving. We all know that all of these other things that we should be doing to reduce our carbon footprint, for example. But actually, habit change is huge, and habit change is the same in the workplace as in our home life, and it's not an easy thing. So I really love how Natasha focused on takeaways and what can we do in the room to take away from here today that will make a difference. So from a social value perspective, as a business, we also talk a lot now about all of the work that we do in the community. We've done this for a long time, but we didn't really talk about it as much because we focused on the stuff that we were building rather than all the good things that we were doing in the community around that. So that has become a huge focus, and these are the stories. These are the stories and the aspects of the business that we talk about: the biodiversity, being a good neighbour, and so on. All of these things that give us our purpose and our mission. So Steve at the beginning talked about the state of the industry and the numbers. And actually, I go to so many conferences that I hear the same numbers all the time, and I want to stab myself in the eye with a pencil because it's just frustrating, isn't it? Every year, the reports come out. You know, we know that we have a shrinking workforce. We know that we need more people. The Highway Sector Council is now actively trying to do things. The local authorities, innovation group are also trying to do things. But how does that translate into you and I in the room? What can we do? Because actually the numbers are not really going very quickly in the right direction. I don't know who, I think quite a lot of businesses in the room will contribute data to this transport industry clients data benchmarking data set. Hands up if you're familiar with this. Okay, not many. I think a lot of businesses do, but probably not within your remit. because you can see now that, so this is National Highways, Transport for London, HS2 and Network Rail, who have combined together and who ask supply chain companies to provide data about their employees. So actually, they've been doing it for, since I joined. I joined 11 years ago today, I joined this industry. It's my anniversary. And we started with this data set collection, I think, 10 years ago. So it's now up to over 500,000 employees and 537 companies. So it's the biggest data set for our industry, and it's very detailed. And we can see, you can track year on year the very tiny shifts, and sometimes the numbers go back again, and sometimes the numbers go forward a little bit. We all got very excited this year because the data set showed a jump of 6% in the number of women joining the industry in the last 12 months. But we did a whole load of digging, and it turned out that that was because there was one supplier, Mighty, who joined the data set, and a large proportion of their large workforce is women, but mostly in the very low-paid functions. So it wasn't quite as exciting as we thought it was. But it's a really great data set, and it actually sits with the Supply Chain Sustainability School. I think most businesses in the room will be members of the Supply Chain Sustainability School. And so you can actually access this data set for your business, and you can go in and compare your own data with the industry data, which is also then compared with the ONS, so society data. So it's really interesting to be able to compare that. And one of the things that really struck me for the 2023 data set that we've been looking at this year was, for the first time, we started to look at the ratio of people applying to all of these 500 or so businesses versus people hired. And it's not something that historically we have looked at. So it's actually very interesting. You can see between applicants the ratio of those who are then shortlisted, that get to interview, from shortlisted, that then get to hired. And so there are some really quite stark differences in the numbers in some cases. I don't know, do any of them jump out to you? Yeah, I haven't got a pointer thing, but that's quite a stark number, isn't it? And the other one that jumps out to me is the disabled one. So here, if we look the ratio of applicants to interview, it's very similar for most of those groups, but for every 5, roughly, disabled people shortlisted, only 1 gets an interview. And so we start thinking about, well, what's driving this? You know, it's really interesting to be able to look at a new data set and to then try and think, well, so what's going on here? Because nobody is actively discriminating, but somehow the numbers are different. So we're sort of trying to, how can we address these issues? And I think a lot of our businesses are doing similar things. We are accredited by inclusive employers. We have employee networks. Hands up if your business has employee networks. Most, I think. Yeah, so there's lots of things that we do, but actually, in practical terms, one of the things that has really been making a difference, and one thing, because this is a free this is a free framework, so it's not something that is expensive or difficult to do, but our business has been working our way through the Disability Confident Framework for the last 4 years, and it really makes you think. It really makes you stop and think, well, how does this affect me in the workplace, with my day-to-day life in my teams? What can we all do? What can we take away from here? And Disability Confident is a government scheme. I'm betting that there are also people in the room whose business is registered with Disability Confident. Do you know? Okay. So I would ask you all to go away and find out if your business is registered with Disability Confident. And if it isn't, ask your HR team, is this something that we could do? Because it's a really practical way of step by step, and it's a real community of businesses as well, because here this is about our industry, and this is about making our industry accessible to everybody. And if we make our industry accessible to the hardest to reach groups, people with different kinds of disabilities, then we make it more inclusive for everybody. So as a takeaway, I would really ask if you would inquire about that. So what does it mean if we talk about attraction? Using the logo, because people recognize the logo and they will understand that means that you're an accessible business. Using different advertising channels to reach people. Having a website, we've literally, as part of our identity makeover, we've just added an accessibility toolbar to our website so that people can adjust the size of the type, or people can use a screen reader so that if you have a visual impairment, then it will read it out to you instead of you having to try and figure out what's going on. Including, also for people with visual impairments, including descriptions, because if you use a lot of images in your advertising or generally in your materials, then people using a screen reader, when they come to an image, they don't know what it says. It might have a lot of text in it, but a screen reader can't read it. So it's really small changes, but just thinking about it and understanding what will make a difference. And there are a lot of organizations out there that will provide best practice support and aren't expensive. And quite a few of them are free. The Valuable 500 at the bottom there is a peer group, and it was supposed to be of 500 businesses. It's now exceeded 500 businesses, but it's very much about businesses giving each other support in this arena and learning from each other. The Hidden Disability Sunflower Lanyard. I wear my sunflower lanyard everywhere because it's a talking point and people ask me about it, but it really helps people with neurodivergence or a hidden disability. It makes people understand that they may have additional needs. And you will see people wearing them in airports, or you probably have seen them out and about. But if your business doesn't do that, it's a very simple thing that you could institute and makes a difference. Our people say that it really gives them confidence and makes them feel like they can ask for accommodations. And the Business Disability Forum I can highly recommend. They are a fantastic organisation that has been helping us make our way through all of this. But there are lots of other organisations out there. And so when you've gone through the attraction process, then you come to recruitment. So this business about shortlisting and interviewing if you offer adjustments at every stage of that process, then again, candidates will feel that they are being considered, that they are confident that they can actually ask. And it all helps. Training for hiring managers at this point is really, really important, because you could see in those statistics earlier on in the data set, it's people doing the sifting generally. Some of your businesses may be using AI to do CV sifting, but again, who writes the algorithms that the AI uses? It's people. And it's people who will select candidates for shortlisting, and it's people who will do the interviewing. So providing awareness training and guidance to hiring managers. I'm guessing there's quite a lot of people who have teams in this room. Show of hands if you have direct reports, if you have a team. Lots and lots, yes. So that's really important. And it's like Natasha said, it's about thinking differently to accommodate everybody, to accommodate a new type of whether it's Gen Z or people with different kinds of disabilities that we haven't had before in our industry. And then in the community, so to David's point, back to schools, there's an awful lot that all our businesses can do going into schools, working in the community. There are lots of great organizations that enable this. I know the Balfours, the Kiers, the Skanskas, the tier ones do a lot of organizing of this kind of thing at major projects, but generally this is something that every business can do. And we've worked a lot recently with charities that support work experience or employment for people with different kinds of disabilities, schools for SEND, special needs students, and actually it makes a huge difference, and can also, for those who are working out in the community, it can make a huge difference to their well-being as well for employees. So it's a win-win. And then into workplaces. This was my favourite. We have a project up at the M6. I'm sure my colleagues will have met Ren, the assistant's dog. But working your way through making your workplaces more accessible. I think that a lot of the adjustments that we can make, it's just a question of somebody asking and actually thinking about it, because we all like to think that our workplaces are accessible, but that's because we maybe don't have the people coming in. It's kind of a chicken and egg situation. If you're not having the people applying or coming into your business, then you don't make those adjustments. But if you don't make those adjustments, the people won't apply. So it's very much a chicken and egg, and you have to actually think about those things first. And some of the things are very simple, like just publishing your workplace adjustments policy, and how do people apply for that? Do most people in the room know how to apply for workplace adjustments at their own business? Show of hands. Okay, that's another question to take away. How do I apply for workplace adjustments? Should I need it? Because I might not need it today, but I might need it tomorrow. Something might happen tomorrow in my life that means I would need to ask for an adjustment for work, whether that be flexible working or some kind of health condition, could be so many things, and just thinking about those in advance makes a huge difference. So we are just at the beginning. We're not at the beginning of our journey, we're on the journey, as they say. We have just opened a new head office in London. And I'm proud to say that our disability network, our employee network, have had a great deal of input into the facilities and the accessibility of the new office. And so that is something that now is becoming systematic in our business, that actually people from all of the different groups are consulted before we do something. We're about to launch a new HR system, and it's a huge deal. It's enormous amount of upheaval to the business, as you can imagine. But at every stage of the way, if we consult with different groups to make sure that the changes that are being made and the new things that are being brought in work, then it will make a big difference. So thank you very much for listening. I've given you a few bits of homework there. So I would really like it to have your feedback afterwards to just follow up on that, if that's okay.
Thank you very much. A lot of useful takeaways from that.